Okay, good. All right, we're going to do Tanya now for today, Friday, the 24th of Adar, March 13th. I just want to point out, it's very important, and this is something where nobody told me this. I had to figure out the hard way that, as I mentioned many times, Rabbi Taub made the Tanya map. Highly advise you to buy it, frame it in your house so you can look at it to understand the map, the overview, and the groupings of units. Very, very helpful, very, 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 very basic. And my brother-in-law just showed me a letter of the Rebbe. Clear, 35 to 37 chapters Tanya. 35, 36, 7 is a unit. So if you read 35, you're not going to appreciate it. If you read 36, you'll appreciate it a little more. But if you do 37, you'll appreciate it a lot more. Okay, just to explain how we got here. In chapter 35, we had a big question. Why does God program us with a handicap called the animal soul? The animal soul gives us life and the survival drive. And it's basically, it's an agent. It comes from Klippa. So God programs into you seemingly a virus, a Klippa virus, a concealment virus that makes you run after things other than God, things that ignore God.
What?
And we gave you a program how to deal with it. We said, just like, don't get tricked up. Don't do it. Only listen to your godly soul. But it's exhausting and it's miserable. And it doesn't stop till you die. So that was 35. Why does God create Baineys like this? Why does God create us with such challenge, internal challenge? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it should bother you. Like, why is it so? Why? I work on myself and I still, I still have, as I quoted the story of Mendel Futterfass. It's a great little book. Highly recommend. It's like something about like in the Gulag or something. I don't know. Mendel Futterfass was an iconic chassid. He was very, very sharp, very, very wise. He was in prison for like 15 years in Siberia, whatever. And there's like little stories of his book, My Gulag Life or something it's called. It's a very small book, but it's very, very good, like short stories of his. Anyways, you'd say two Hasidim meet and they say, how's it going? And they say, one day I win, one day he wins, and then we go at it again. Talking about the Yetzer Sahara. That's how life's going. Understand? It's a never-ending battle. Why? Why is it so hard? To understand why it is hard, but it's incredibly important that God made you this way. And to understand that, in chapter 35, we talked about, you know why? Because God gives you an animal soul that can do mitzvahs, particularly physical mitzvahs, and shine the Shekhinah on the body. So it might feel really yucky to have an animal soul in a body that is constantly running away from God, but through your harnessing it and bitalizing it by doing mitzvahs with it, you harness the Shekhinah on your body. If you ended at 35, I was talking to somebody about this last night, you're like, okay, better I shouldn't have been born. Like in heaven, I also get to have the Shekhinah and I don't have to deal with the challenges. So like, you give me the problem, you're giving me like the benefit of the problem. But like, don't give me the problem. As my mother's here, as Rabbi Herson, all of us would say, I don't need your honey, I don't need your stinger.
I think Bilam said that.
It's Hashem said it to Bill. Hashem said it to Bilam. Very good.
Right.
But Rabbi Herson would use it in a colloquial sense. Is the chief Chabad rabbi of New Jersey, who I grew up with. I don't need your honey. I don't need your stinger. Don't give us the animals on the body. Don't give us bird. Don't make us alive. And then let's say in heaven, we'll bask in there. We'll have the Shekhinah there. So that's where it segues into chapter 36. No. In heaven, it wouldn't happen. You understand? Like, you might get some glimmers of Shekhinah and stuff there. It's not the same thing of getting it down here. Why? Because this is God's desire. God's desire is that the darkest, the most concealed world, our world, specifically there, can there be a revelation of light from darkness that doesn't exist in pre-birth heaven or any of the higher cosmos? Only here. One is, that's just God's desire. He likes going to vacation in Jamaica. He doesn't like going to Germany. It's like he likes here. He doesn't like heaven, you know. But it's logical, because it's not just like the Torah says he likes it here better than there. It's logical that there's a certain advantage here in darkness that doesn't exist in the worlds of revelation, of the worlds of divine light, the various levels. It doesn't exist. It's not. They have no, and that's what we said in chapter 36. In very short, you know, that this is the end of the bus line. It's all leading to here. And in here, you see this truly novel thing of darkness being able to be revealed to light. There's no darkness above. There's whatever darkness, whatever limitation they have, doesn't get transformed to light. Here, darkness gets transformed to light, which is a whole different topic. But it is important to say, why is darkness such a better, a more juicy dish to God, a more juicy desire than, you know, the light, the angels sing Hallelujah? Because darkness is unlike light. Darkness can only be sourced in pre-revelation essence of God. Pre-creation, pre-inkling of creation, not creation, like even idea of creation. It can only be in God's essence, as that's not about relating. It just is like his innermost self. Darkness has none of the trappings of revelation. It's the exact opposite, which is really uncomfortable when you're dealing with darkness. But if you think about it, this is where the essence, the non-revelation of God is, which means it's the essence of God. Interesting point. So that's chapter 36, saying how this world is the desire, is really the biggest desire and the biggest expression of God. So now we're understanding, and before we get to 37, he ends off saying, and what's the instrument to reveal the dark to become light, to reveal how darkness is really the essence of God? What's the tool? Torah. Torah is three things, as I said yesterday. It is the revelation. It's the revelation of God. So it's the ability, when I say revelation, it's the ability to shine, to shine in the darkness God, because darkness might be a crass version of God's essence of non-revelation, but if you just stay at the darkness, there's no God. It's just darkness, right? I mean, you stay at the darkness, like, and the goal is ultimately to have our cake and eat it too. Have darkness that you can see as God. So what's the instrument? Is Torah. Torah is the revelation, flat out. It's the revelation of what? It's the revelation of God's infinity. The problem with God's infinity, that it blows up darkness. It blows up finiteness. So what do? Like, you're giving me like a solution that I blow up with. And the Jews, by the way, blew up. Every time they got the Torah, by the time they died, their souls left their bodies. So what is using that story as a model for sustainability? What did God do? He took the dew of Torah, which is also the dew of the resurrection era, and revived them. Meaning Torah has another component, that it is the enabler of the finite being to receive the infinite light. It's like it's the electricity and it's the conductor at the same time. Okay, great.
Wow.
However, that alone would not make God's desire for a dwelling in the darkness, a dwelling in our world of concealment, to happen. Proof, in Mount Sinai, it didn't last very long. It only worked as long as God juggled these two things, threw infinity at us and revived us with the dew, the Torah aspect that can make us alive and get the infinity. But the second God stopped, Mount Sinai became a mundane mountain. It's not holy anymore, Mount Sinai, which is indicative of the giving of the Torah. It's amazing, right? But it's not the ultimate proof. The second God stopped, juggling these two opposites, nothing happened. Like that's it. No more desire happening. And even worse, they make a golden calf. Like you see, it does. There's no, and the ultimate goal is to transform the darkness, the finiteness of us, that we don't need to be spoon-fed and propped up. We are on our own. We become stand on our 2 feet. How does that happen? Didn't work then. It happens throughout the long road of history of the third aspect of Torah, refining the darkness, refining the finiteness of the world through the Jewish person and the Jewish bodies spread all over the world, doing Torah mitzvahs, and slowly through that, elevating everything they come in contact with. People, place, things, objects, minerals. And that, the long road of history, is the third aspect of Torah, the refiner of all of reality. For when Mashiach comes, then we can have the infusion of infinite godly light accessible to us, and we are able to sustain that because the nature of physicality no longer becomes a contradiction to the infinite light of God. It's been refined throughout history via the Torah mitzvahs to able to sustainably realize it and grow in it and learn more about it.
So that's getting rid of the klipot? Is that?
Yeah. We in short, we are, everything in the world is klipa. Middle klipas noga or bat, whether it's dark opaque klipa or translucent klipa. Everything in this world. Okay. Sorry. So therefore, what do we need? What's left? So chapter 37, and I'm sorry I'm going on a tangent because I found this very enjoyable to myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm indulging myself. Guilty pleasure. Is 94. Yesterday's chapter 37 explains how, I think the way my simple understanding, the third aspect of Torah as the great refiner of reality to receive the divine revelation, to normalize it and sustain it, he explains how that works in chapter 37. How does it work? As it's known, everything in the time of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead is dependent on our work in exile. In other words, it's not like, if we get to Israel, we have a temple, then we can do, the best mystical stuff. No. Specifically in exile and darkness, that's how we get to the end goal of Mashiach revelation. Why? And this is the logic. Because, just to summarize yesterday, everything, so when you do stuff with mitzvahs, a couple things are happening. I'm going to employ a little bit of Talmudic jargon. You know what jargon is now, right? Okay. Sesame Street bonus on the show. Which is like this. There's a term in Gemara and Talmud in the commentators called chefza and gavra. Chefza is Aramaic for the object. Gavra is Aramaic for the person. So when you say you do a mitzvah, you put tefillin on. There's really two things going on, right? What's going on? You're elevating the leather of the tefillin, and you're doing it. So you're elevating yourself. Okay, sorry. I have to wait. And therefore, whenever you are doing a mitzvah, we say that's causing Mashiach. That is an act of Mashiach. That's an act of revelation. It's an act of not just revelation, an act of sublimation. Elevating allowing the object, let's say an esrog, and you're doing the mitzvah, the person. So you're getting elevated, and the esrog is getting elevated, right? So this is part of the mechanics of how it's more details of this third. We mentioned briefly in chapter 36 That Torah is three things. It's revelation, it's the armor to receive the revelation and not be, dissolve, and it's the refining tool to refine the world to be able to handle revelation on its own. How does that third aspect work? That third aspect works by engaging stuff, chefza, esrog, money, right? Food, mitzvah, and then it engages the body, the guy, the person, and both are getting elevated, right? It's really annoying. Okay. Okay. Today, this is all prelude to 98. Let's go. An additional virtue in mitzvot involving action. Aside from their function in elevating your animal soul, which we mentioned above. So actually, if I take it back, it's more about, so you're elevating the thing, but we talked more yesterday was about elevating yourself. When you do the esrog and the tefillin, you're elevating yourself, your animal soul. Okay. Another virtue of why actual mitzvahs bring to Mashiach, or mitzvahs. The vitalizing soul's energy clothed in the utterance of letters of one's speech and Torah study, prayer, or the like in actionable mitzvahs, right? Your ability to have energy to do stuff, to speak Torah and do mitzvahs, derives its entire growth and vitality from the blood, right? Blood. Where's the blood sourced in? Animal soul. Animal soul is sourced in klipas noga. Meaning, any mitzvah you do came from your energy, which is dependent on your blood, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's in the blood? How does blood get cells and stuff? Through food and drink that you've eaten and drunk, and that became blood. Now, all the food and drink that was under the dominion of klipat noga and drew their vitality from it, right? Because everything in the world comes from klipa, various levels. When you do a mitzvah with the energy from that food and drink, this klipa is transformed from evil to good and is absorbed, sublimated into holiness by means of the energy of the animal soul that grows from it, which has now clothed itself in these letters of Torah and prayer, or in the performance of this mitzvah, which actually constitute the unveiled expression of the inner aspects of God's will. Right? Basically, you're giving food becomes blood, which becomes energy for God's will being done. So all that gets absorbed into God's will. And their vitality is also their vitality of the energy that you do in the mitzvah, which comes from the blood. It's all being absorbed in the blessed Ein Sof light, which is his will as well. And their vitality, with their vitality, the energy of the animal soul is likewise elevated and absorbed. This is everything here is very bekitzer. Everything's very, very, there's a lot of hints of bigger ideas, but he's not going into them here because that's beyond the scope. But for example, we talk about just a little bit of a example, which is everything in the world. Why does a human being need food to live? If we're a higher life force, why do we need bread to live? Like it's a lower level life force. Like why is the higher life force dependent on the lower life force for existence? Right? The answer is in Kabbalah it talks about that the lower something is in life force, the lower it is because it actually is a higher source, which is why it's hidden in a lower life force shell, a lower element shell. The higher something is rooted, the further it can fall and reach. So when you eat bread, you're getting your soul, which is pretty high, is dependent on these trapped sparks that come from a very lofty source. Anyways, that's just a side point. I didn't get into that. Thereby, all the klipat noga, here's the key. The whole world, if you had to say one word, what's the energy of the world? Klipas noga. No, klipas noga. Yeah, everything comes from God, but what's the energy that God made to create the world? Klipas noga, which constitutes the vitality of this physical and corporeal world as a whole. It will ascend as well. Meaning, we're talking about changing the world. How do you change the world? How does that make sense? Poof, God the fairy changes the world. It doesn't work like that. There's a logic. There's a method. The method is, what's the method? That people with godly souls and animal souls, and through getting the animal soul to do what's right, the animal soul brings with it all its survival juice, the blood that comes from all the stuff that gives its energy, blood, food, food, drink, housing, air, all that. You're elevating everything when you choose to do the mitzvah and bittul to God. When the whole neshama of the divine soul in all of Israel, which is divided into 600,000 particular offshoots, will fulfill each individual soul thereof, the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Okay, so when does it happen? When the collective soul of the Jewish people will not do the 365 sins, prohibitions, which restrains the 365 blood vessels of the animal soul. So, in other words, why do we not eat tray food? Because it's a blocker. It's a blocker for the good energy to flow, for your energy of a pig. If the person eats it and it gives them energy and they go do mitzvahs with it, it doesn't get elevated, because the goal of the pig was to stay away from it and to go eat the cow or whatever, the plant food, whatever, depending on your preference, and the kosher food. And then the whole idea of eating is elevated. But if a person, the 365 prohibitions are saying, don't block up the process of the transformation of energy to divine light. So you're restraining the blood. So it says 365 represents the artery, the blood vessels, whatever, in some medical textbook. So they do not draw nurture or vitality by means of such transgression from any of the three completely unclean klipot, the opaque klipas, from which are derived the 365 biblical prohibitions. And the rabbinical prohibitions, they're offshoots. The vitalizing soul can no longer ascend to God, having been tainted by the impurity of the three impure klipot. For these klipot can never be elevated, but must be nullified and utterly destroyed. The vitalizing soul can no longer ascend, being tainted. Yeah. As we said earlier, these klipas can't be elevated, but they have to be nullified and destroyed. As it's written, I will banish the unclean spirit from the earth when Mashiach comes.
Oh, man.
I mean, this is beyond the scope of why does God make stuff that could trip you up, but whatever. It is what it is. Like, this is the reality. There's stuff that's not going to be helpful in your elevating reality, and there's stuff that is going to be helpful in elevating reality. The sinful stuff is telling you don't do the stuff that you're not going to elevate. It's a dead end. It's a dead end road if you deal with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The other stuff will get elevated. Okay. And there's 248 mitzvahs, I say, positive mitzvahs, which draw down the blessed Ein Sof light below, to elevate to him and to bind and unite with him the entire vital soul, which is the 248 limbs of the body, in perfect unity. So they become actually one with him. So in addition to making a clean vessel, then when you do a mitzvah, it really becomes one with the body and every limb of the body. In accordance with his will, as we said earlier, that there should be an abode in the lower realms. And so great is this unity that your limbs, your body, and all the stuff that gave it. It's actually, to me, it sounds like here. They're like the person who's a chariot, even though we're not like the patriarchs, but we come same concept. So it sounds to me, reading it, and there's so much analysis of the language here, which is beyond my research. But the way in reading it, just offhand, to me, so I want to point out here from reading this, and I appreciate this class because it gives me just to read quickly and then to understand at least on a basic dot connecting level, is that it seems like if you read Tanya, what is the main place where the world becomes elevated to become ready for Mashiach?
This world.
But where in the world? What part of which aspect? It sounds like, and this is a little bit different than we were trained in our, Chabad, I don't know, 80s, 90s, education, which is, it sounds like it's in you. You are the place where heaven meets earth. And from you to the world. In particular, the Jewish people being at the vanguard of this experiment project, in their animal soul and body, that's when the people do it in a clean energy way, for a modern term, meaning they don't get contaminated by the insolvable klippa, the opaque klippa, treif and forbidden stuff, and then they go do positive mitzvahs that cause a fusing of that of their body and their animal soul with all its energy, and along that they bring up also all the stuff they interacted with. Meaning it's saying the person is at the crux of where Mashiach comes, or where God can reveal himself. And the person being at the crux brings with him all the energy stuff he ate, drank, dealt with. But it can only be transformed through the person. Do you know what I'm saying? This is a lot of times we think in Hasidus or in Chabad outreach, like you do a mitzvah, very Baal Shem Tov, like you make a blessing on a drink of water in a certain place, it elevates the place, right? You heard that story? You make a blessing in a place. We always saw that it's at the place and the water, the brook, No, it was with the person drinking it that was needed to elevate the place. It's both, but it seems like it's really in the person is where you see the revelation. You're not going to see the revelation. You don't see the revelation now. The brook can't become not part of nature. It's part of nature, which means it's hidden. But the person who has a brain and a mind and a soul can make the choice to use the water of the brook to make a blessing on the water and to drink it, whatever. And they have, even this world now in exile, they're the one that can make the revelation. I don't know. I don't want to we're taking too much time, but